coming in. Chuck the weight to the side, pull it back, let off the throttle so it got chucked a bit. Didn't need any more angle, so I let off the gas. Punching the throttle because I need a bit more speed. How you going, ladies and gents? I just thought I'd put together a quick video just of sort of the fundamentals of drifting and sort of what you should be thinking about when you sort of got an idea of what you're doing, but you're not really feeling in control. You don't know where you're going. Just existential dread in out of control car, pretty much. A lot of what I've seen with people doing is they're jumping right in and they're putting together a nice, fully worked Sylvia, putting out 1,000, 1,000,000 horsepower. It doesn't matter. Just way more power than they can handle, and they don't even understand what they're doing to try and, get skidding. They just want to send it, which is fair enough. Send the bastard all you want, but you sort of want to be a little bit in control of what you're doing and at least understand why things are happening. So, in my humble opinion, I think that just everyone really, but for when you're really starting out and you're just learning, I think a good way to get the grips of what you're doing is just to start in a sort of low-powered car. Because if you don't, keep in control of your line, like what I've done there, I just lost the skid a little bit. I mean, there's no just powering through it. I've just, I fucked the line. Whereas if I was, banging 1,000 horsepower, I'm be spinning tires in 4th gear, So that's definitely something to consider. I mean, if you want to if you're not about that, sure, go ahead, learn whatever you want. It's a game, it's for fun at the end of the day, but it's just something to consider. So anyway, before we get into it all, I just thought I'd quickly show what I think is probably the best assists to be having on, or at least the important ones to point out. Firstly, ABS. I like ABS off. I like to sort of be in control of all my inputs for the most part, you'll see. Steering is normal. I've tried simulation. It's not for me. It just doesn't work for me. Traction control, stability control, both off, obviously, because that's going to be, if you start skidding, that's going to stop, that's going to put it into the fun. Shifting, obviously definitely manual, but personally I recommend manual with clutch. There's just a lot you can do with the clutch that I think's very handy. And just in general, when you're racing manual with clutch, you can skip on the upgrades to lower your shifting time because you're going to shift faster anyway. That's just how the game works. It doesn't take into account the shift time with manual with clutch, at least not as much anyway. It's still going to be a little bit slower than if you upgraded, but it's going to be a lot faster than someone just using manual without the upgrades. Everything else is sort of up to you. Friction assist off. Although that's really only when you're off the track, but I mean, if you're putting the tyres in the dirt, you probably want a little bit of feedback from that. Rewind, I'll turn that off just because it's a pain in the ass having that follow me the whole time. And the rest is sort of up to you. I like the suggested line on, just because whatever, that's what I like. Anyway, so let's sort of get into it. A lot of what I've like I touched on earlier with people with powerful cars is they're just going to try and get into the slide just with power and nothing else. Which is fine, you can do that, but you're missing out on a lot of the fundamentals. So personally, I think what you want to practice is just throwing your weight into the corners. So if you imagine the car's full of water, just like any container of water, a bucket of water or something, and you shake it around, the water's going to go from side to side, and it's going to feel heavier on one side or the other depending on where it's swinging. And it's going to want to move in that direction. It's the same thing happens with weight in cars. Even though they're fully solid, the weight is functionally liquid within them. So just sort of what you want to do, or a good way to start your drift, is just what they call the Scandinavian flick. So I've just turned there, no handbrake or anything, just thrown it into the corner. Not the best, but it does the job. And yeah, you just want to sort of control the inputs of the car to be doing what you want it to do, rather than just brute forcing it out with a bit of power. Because you'll find that, you know, once you switch from doing something like this to a car with 1,000 horsepower, you still get your bag of tricks, but now you've also got the horsepower to back it up. Whereas, and I did the same thing when I started with Forza 2 and going into Forza 3, because I was still only pretty shitty by the end of Forza 2, is that I could send it pretty well, but if anything ever didn't go my way, I didn't know how to recover it. And a good way I learnt how to be able to recover things is just, you know, get rid of all the crutches I could. And the main crutch I found was just being able to power out of everything. It doesn't matter what my line was, I'm going to be able to keep those tyres spinning just because I've got the power there. And something I want you to consider is when you're, you know, out there on the track and you're just hitting the corners, is just have a think of what your inputs are actually doing. So if I lock up the just the normal brakes right now, I don't have any control of the car. But maybe you want that sometime. You just want to extend your slide a little bit. You don't necessarily need to turn in the moment. You just want to go in a straight line. And that's going to, say for example, help you hit apexes that you missed. But personally I prefer to use the handbrake for that. And I'll see if I can give you an example here. So I've come in too early. Oh, fuck that one up major. Nothing you can do about that. So I'm a bit early, hold the handbrake and you're going to slide more. And just like that, you've extended your apex instead of going off the track or cutting the corner or whatever. You know, you've lost a lot of speed, but you've kept on, you know. It's not going to look pretty, but it'll get the job done in a pinch, stop you crashing. You can at least finish the rest of the run like I've done then. Not going to win you any awards, but it's a lot less frustrating if you're not, you know, looping out all the time or just cutting off the tracks. That's things like that you want to consider. And you want to think also not just like extending slides and stuff like that, but what inputs are controlling what's going on in the car. So obviously when you're putting the power down after you've started sliding, the more throttle you put into it, the more the rear end's going to want to kick out. So what I like to do is I sort of control my counter steering with the front wheels, obviously. So I turn into the corner to stop myself looping out, and I'll kick the rear end out more just with throttle rather than turning into the corner. So rather than, you know, turning in like that to skid, I'll just punch it a bit and the rear end's going to want to go out while you've got the throttle mashed. And when you're doing something like that, you can, especially in the more high power cars, you're going to be around the corner and you can just hold the throttle and keep tapping the counter steering like that, and it's just going to naturally balance out. And something else you're going to want to consider as well is, especially if you're going to use manual with clutch, is you also have the option to just drop the clutch a little bit and give it a bit of gas and you're going to break traction. It's not as advantageous in a weak car, because like if I was hitting in a straight line, I'm just going to lock up again. I'll pick up traction again and not be sliding or anything, but it's just something to consider. Look, just tap the throttle, tap the clutch, and I shouldn't have done that there. I've slid out and hit the wall, but you know, you get the idea. Well, we're up here at the start of the section. I'll just bring up my tune real quick. Okay, so your most important thing for your tune, bar none, where is it, alignment, is you just want to mash the camber out, because it's all about flexing on people, you know. You know, a lot of negative camber helps. You don't need -5 camber, but it looks pretty. So just a little bit. You know, you don't need that much, but a little bit. You want to have a little bit of toe, just it's going to make it more unstable, pretty much. You can set it how you like. You tweak, you know, just mess around with alignment a fair bit. Gearing, that's another one that's important. You're going to have to find that one out yourself, really, with whatever car you decide and what tracks you're on. Mine's all pretty short gears, because I don't have that much power, so I need to sort of have a range of gears without much, you know, speed difference, but they're all sort of on the power as soon as I switch into them, for the most part anyway. Tyres is a low horsepower car again, so I've just maxed the PSI on the rears. The fronts were fine. That just helped me break traction a little bit. Differential, this one is the actual important one. Put both of these at 100%. That is crucial. Aside from that, you can sort of mess with things how you want. The rest of this is mostly stock, just lowered the shit out of it just because it looks pretty. Not really. I mean, I'm sure it changes the handling, but that's not why I did it. Pretty much the same with the alignment as well. But that does actually help a fair bit, changing your camber. But something more reasonable might be, I don't know, -3 on the front, and then maybe -1.5 on the rears, or even less, depending on your car and what you like. Just play around with that. I'll just chuck that away. But yeah, pretty much all you want to focus on is just using your car itself and the weight of the car and the little inputs you've got other than just power to send it through the corner. So you see I'm shaking side to side, you know, shaking the water around, chuck it into the corner. It's going to like that. Just keep that angle down, keep the power on, counter steering, holding the handbrake because I'm a bit short there. Come up around the corner. I went down to gear 2, now I'm up in gear 3. Mess it up a little bit, but that's alright. And I'm going to come around here and start again. So it's also good to sort of find little sections like this as well, because just short, if you mess up, you know, it's 10 seconds to get back to the start. You're not going to be pulling your hair out. Not unlike if you're mashing Maple Valley in a 1,000 horsepower car, which is absolute ripper. But you know, if you loop out on one of the main corners, you sort of feel like you've wasted the track. But that's just me though. See that? I'm just going to chuck it in, no handbrake there. So all the weight of the car back there again. Power on through here. Keeping the power on, because especially with a little one like this, you need to keep that power on, or you're just going to gain traction again, and there's nothing fun's going to happen. Just chucking the weight side to side into the corner, handbrake on. Oh, should have clutched before I handbraked. Down a second. Keep it in that power band, and then up into third, and out we go. And that's pretty much just the key. Is the takeaway from all this is just think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Alright, so if it needs be, you find a more simple track than this, and you just focus on that first corner. Alright, I've handbraked there to extend it a little bit because I chucked it in a bit too early. I'm not going fast enough. Then I went down to second to keep the power on. Comes to this corner here, just think, I'm chucking it in because I want the car to slide. Powering on to keep the arse out. Counter steering to stop it going too far. And when I counter steer, I drop the throttle a little bit just because it was getting out there. And these are the things you want to be thinking in your brain. You don't just want to chuck it and just put random inputs in and see what happens. Just sort of think, this button is going to make the car do that. This button is going to make the car do that. A bit more throttle is going to do this. A little less throttle is going to do this. And just really think about why you're doing things. Because you can understand, you know, the basic concepts of drifting. It's not that hard, really. Just the opposite of what you're supposed to do when you're racing. Power through the corner instead of, you know, letting off the gas, and the rear end's going to kick out. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's the TLDR. But it's all the finesse in the middle of it that you've got to be thinking about. And I've had a lot of friends and people, you know, wanting me to teach them. And they're just punching it into the corner, holding into the gas, holding the gas on like they've seen in the D1 GP, and they're thinking, why am I looping out? Or smashed into walls, or, you know, just fucking multiplayer hopper mayhem, pretty much. So just think about what you're doing. See, chuck it side to side, get a bit of weight in, kick it back, braked a little bit because I was going too fast. Down to second, probably could have kept it in third, but down to second. Back up to third because we're speeding up a little bit, need a bit more power. Chucking it into the corner again. Gassing on. That was a bit better. Let off the gas when I'm coming around that edge of the corner because I don't want to keep looping out, because I want to, when I let off the gas, I can easily chuck it back side to side like that, see? Off the gas, and I've chucked it too far. So you just want to be paying attention to these little things as you're going about it, you know? And that's, you know, it's pretty much all it is. It's just all these tiny little, the minutiae of the corner. There's 100 different things that are going on in one corner. Oh, unless you've got your wheel and you can lock the corner in right, but I can't get mine set up nice. So just focus on the little things. Get yourself a nice little weak car, but if you get it wrong, that corner's, you know, gonna reset itself. If I drop the angle too much, look at that, I've got grip. Look, I'll show you, this thing is bloody useless. Handbrake in, throttle on. It's gonna drop down to the reverse, release the handbrake. It doesn't even skid, that's full throttle. You don't need a lot of powder to have a good time, especially on the tighter tracks, the sort of segments you're going to be doing tandems on. You know, on the big tracks where if you're in the points lobbies, if you're doing drifting rivals or something, you know, you're going to need a bit of horsepower to back you up, because points aren't really about style, and they aren't about, you know, well, they're about technique if you're getting up the top, but if you're just in a random points lobby, it's just about doing nutty shit at high speed and big angles, which is fun in its own right, but it's a different kind of ball game. So yeah, just think about these things. It's coming in, chuck the weight to the side, pull it back, let off the throttle so it got chucked a bit. Didn't need any more angle, so I let off the gas. Punching the throttle because I need a bit more speed. Come around, chuck it, big throw, down a gear, on the gas again so we get around the corner. Just counter steering so I don't loop out, and away you go, simple as that. Have fun.